The second discussion item is the district goals. And now we have finished all of our reporting on the district goals. So we wanted to just highlight a couple things based on some previous discussions the board's had. If you look at the graduation rate, the building administration reported out on a graduation rate earlier in the school year, right in the end of August. And it's come to our attention that the state will adjust that graduation rate for the school report card in late October when they release the report card, because they have access to all of the student ID numbers in the state of Illinois. So some of those students that we cannot account for or verify that have transferred, the states can sometimes get their late records transferred from other schools, which would adjust our rate. So one thing the board and I discussed briefly, as it related to my personal goals for the board, was that we would change this directly to a 4-year graduation rate. And I think that should be the recommendation for the board to consider for the district goals, the 4-year graduation rate, and then the changes are in red as reported on the state report card. Because then that gives us a true snapshot from what the state records are for our 4-year graduation rate as well.
Is that, what did we mean by 100% eligible cohort?
There was some discussion, because right off the bat, if there are students that are have individualized education plans, they have the opportunity to stay until the semester before their 22nd birthday. And so I think that's where we also we need to discuss on whether we want to, technically those students would be included in the eligible cohort, even though they have the right to stay until they're 22.
I was just wondering, okay, I understand. I was just wondering if we excluded those people that transferred out of the 100% eligible cohort.
If we find where they went.
Right.
They graduated.
Correct.
Count as a graduation for us.
But there's some,
I understand, but we had the problem before where, right, we lost. Now
Right.
you're telling me the state's
the
going to.
state's able to pick some of those
And
up
I
that
just want to know
can't.
we didn't have a conflict there.
Right.
When we said eligible cohort, we were excluding those off because we said we couldn't track them.
We, in the past, we have not been excluding them off. We've been counting them as our denominator,
Okay.
as the part of the class. We would continue to do that, but we would go off the state report card. And the only other thing we changed was under college readiness, 100% of the graduating class. I just added that in there. That was not in there. And that would be to try to be college ready with a 21 or better on the ACT. The only news that's starting to come out of Springfield a little bit is that they are rebidding and looking at the testing for the state of Illinois, and on top of the park, but also how they currently have legislation and that requires a student to take a college entrance exam. And no, we cannot get a confirmation. The high school superintendents and our association has been pushing it extremely hard. We cannot get confirmation, but there's a lot of rumors flying out that they could be shifting that requirement from ACT to SAT.
What?
I don't know if it came down to money. And also we were told that it's more statistically reliable. So I'm not sure.
SAT.
Right. And we have a new superintendent, state superintendent of schools. And so there's been some hints dropped that that's what we should be preparing for. But it's already October and they haven't told us yet for this spring. So we'll keep you posted on that. In the event that occurs, we may need to look at the district goals and some of the other goals we've used for building administration and the superintendent.
Also a preparation course, right? Don't we prepare people to take the ACT and the SAT?
Correct. A lot of the stuff we've been doing at RB for the last several years is focused on ACT.
Which is probably true for most people.
That's why they
It's pretty true the Midwest colleges provide more ACT and SAT.
Correct, and that's why the high school superintendents were against Park to an extent, and also with this change, because everything we've been doing for the last several years has been ACT focused.
Well, Kevin, the SAT is changing the format because it doesn't work. I mean, that's the truth. So I'd hope that the superintendents look into this, the reasons for this change with, questioning, I should say, because it doesn't make sense. How can I
Well,
say it's more reliable when you're changing the test?
Well, and when the whole infrastructure we've got and everybody else, which we've paid for, which we've fine-tuned over the years, then gets thrown out the window for,
Whole new set of
it's
infrastructure.
ridiculous.
Well, I would hope that the superintendent would then at least consider that in his ruling down and give a multi-year time to transition then, as opposed to slamming it down schools' throats in no time frame.
Well, kind of like they did with Park, we were pretty much told, 6 months before, roughly 8 months before, that we had to give one Park test as well as still give the ACT, right? So, not very organized and efficient down there.
You can relate our board's position in any meetings you go to, and
I will.
I like the idea of many years to move it into fruition.
We submitted a letter, and Kristen, if you want to talk about this letter from your CADCA group, and we also talked about that letter at the Suburban Superintendent's Association, but it was more or less opposing the Park test exam, correct?
Mhm.
You want to speak to that a little bit of what that entailed, or?
Just reiterated some of the things that we've already talked about before, so it expressed concern over the benchmarks that were set in addition to all of the concerns that we've raised in the past about the test, of students not really buying into the test because it's not being used for college and career, not having the opportunity to really pilot it before implementing it, things of that nature.
So I did sign my name to that letter with some of the other suburban superintendents and local superintendents. Whether or not that will fall on deaf ears, I'll keep you posted. But the latest news coming out of there is that the SAT is winning the race for the change. So, with that being said, if you do look at our district goals overall, I think you see that there's been the administration, particularly the teachers and the building administration, have done a nice job increasing our scores and our percentages, and also Tim's done a nice job with the budget, and you look at our finances and our fund balances. So these posters will be updated and hung throughout the school building in the main commons areas for spectators to see as well, that we're continuing to follow these goals and work towards the progress on these goals and chart our progress. They'll also be updated on the web. Are there any comments from the board or questions from the board?
I was in our engagement staff. I'm wondering if we should, number one, do we include individuals who are in club associated sports like hockey?
No, we do not.
Okay. Who's participating in a joint group, like with Nazareth, there's a 5-school thing. Secondly, should we be, for those individuals who have to work part-time and who can't participate in activities because they need it for financial reasons, is there a way we should include that as a metric somehow? That's something to think about. I don't know. I mean, sometimes students just can't participate because they're required to, for financial reasons, go out and work part-time, and they just don't have the time to do it. And I'm just wondering, we're saying, we're asking them to participate, but they don't have the time to do it, and then we're penalizing our stats here to do it. I don't know what that number is, and if it's a huge number or whatever, but I don't know if there's some way we can look into that to see that they can't participate because they just don't have time because they're required to go and help support the family.
Well, the best, we can ask that they, to the best of their ability, when they report out on this number, that they try to determine like categories of people who
Yeah.
don't fall within the participation. Because our goal is 100%, right?
Right. But I mean, if they have to work, Right.
Yeah, and if that information can come back to us when
Right.
they report on the other percent that aren't participating.
But regardless of the reason that the students don't get engaged, if the purpose of the metric is we believe students who are engaged with other activities are more likely to have a better experience here, the
Right.
reason for not
Understood.
wanting to do it is not particularly relevant to the measure. But I also think you told us before when you did the survey of kids who didn't get engaged, that was one of the categories. I don't
Correct.
recall it being a big number.
We did a survey 2 years ago, and Dave Mannon plans on doing a survey at the end of
Okay.
this school year as well.
Okay.
I have no question.
Any other questions? Or Laura has a question then?
I got
Yes.
one on this engagement. I think that's what Tim brought up before about the survey. I think the kids that aren't participating, maybe because they're working or something like that, what can we do to get them involved? You know, I mean, would there be other activities they'd be interested in doing, you know?
We brought ski club back.
Yeah, some of the other clubs you brought
We
back.
brought a couple volunteer clubs back this year. I wonder what ski club, was there another one?
Fishing. was that last
Fishing,
year, too?
since we've done the survey, we also brought the language clubs back, and art club is looking to get started up again as well.
So, I mean, I'm hoping that's somewhere else we can tap in. Go ahead, Laura.
Yes?
So from the West Cook dinner meeting, they had a speaker come, and one of the things the speaker challenged the different boards to do was in our surveys to our communities to see how we're doing as a school district, they challenged us to ask our community if our district goals resonated with our community, and I didn't know if we do that. So in the surveys that you send out to the families, are we getting feedback on these goals that we've identified for the school? You know, like, do you agree with these goals or not? Something to that effect.
Okay. Oh, I don't know if we have in the past. The last survey, we have to send one out every other year to the families. The last one was part of that accreditation process, where they were able to talk about the instructional programs, the support, non-instructional programs, those types of things. And so I don't think we had an opportunity to add in any specific section on our district goals. Kristen, do you recall if there was a section on district or building goals?
There was a section on mission, but it didn't have any specific questions regarding the district or building goals.
So we would send that survey out next fall again next year, correct?
Yes, but we'd be using the 5 essential survey.
Okay, and I think that does align to district goals a little more. In general, does your school district provide goals, and do they?
Well, the challenge was, and they said that if the school is not aligned with what the community feels is important, then we may get pushback, or we may not be as successful in our district goals. So if there's any other way or tap in where you get some data or evidence that the community is supporting those, that could be helpful.
Okay.
So make a note to do the next survey.
Or any way you do it, or whatever, register somehow, you know, something to consider. I thought was interesting.
Okay, any other questions on page 126, 127? Okay, we'll move on to visitor statements. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages the participation of its citizens in the business of the school district. There are 2 points in a meeting where visitor comments are scheduled. Citizens are welcome to raise questions or make comments at either one. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per individual and cannot be combined. Please note the Board of Education will not answer questions or engage in dialogue during visitor comments. If a person would like additional time to address the board, such a request should be submitted in writing 48 hours before the meeting to the superintendent. At this point, I'll just take a show of hands from the audience. Is anyone here to make a statement? Okay, so I'll cut off my little commentary right there and then open it up to the floor. Anyone would like to speak?